In the stillness of dawn, the city of Athens awoke beneath a pale golden sky. The streets were quiet, yet whispers of old legends lingered in the air. Stories of gods and mortals lived in every stone, every column, every marble stair. Among those tales was one that spoke of a hidden flame, a flame said to burn not with heat, but with truth itself. It was not found in hearths or torches, but in a sacred temple high in the hills. The people believed it revealed the unseen and gave voice to honesty. Yet few had ever seen it, and fewer still dared to search. The goddess Athena watched over her city with eyes both kind and wise. She saw that truth was fading, lost among doubt and false words. And so the legend of the flame of truth began to stir once more. It called not for warriors, but for seekers of wisdom and courage. This is the story of a journey, a test, and a light that never lies. It is the tale of Athena and the flame of truth. Legends are like rivers, flowing through time, carrying whispers from one age to the next. In the heart of Athens, these whispers curled through the streets like invisible threads. Merchants in the agora spoke softly of a secret, their voices lowered with care. Elders told children of a flame that never dimmed, hidden in a place few had seen. This flame was unlike any other, for it did not burn wood or oil. Instead, it burned with something greater, something both fragile and unbreakable. It was said to be the flame of truth, a light untouched by shadow or deceit. When it glowed, no lie could stand before it. No falsehood could survive its clarity. But the flame was not easy to find, nor easy to face. Some claimed it rested deep within a temple carved into the side of a mountain. Others believed it floated above a spring where silence guarded its secrets. Still others whispered it lived within the hearts of those willing to be honest. No one could agree, yet the legend never died, only shifted like smoke in the wind. The people of Athens carried both wonder and fear in their hearts. For truth, they knew, was a gift, but also a burden. Truth could unite, but it could also divide, stripping away illusions many cherished. Athena, goddess of wisdom, heard these whispers as clearly as if they were prayers. She knew her people longed for clarity in an age clouded by doubt. Rumors spread faster than olive trees grew, weaving webs of suspicion. Neighbors distrusted neighbors, and words carried weight heavier than stone. In such times, the thought of a flame that revealed only honesty felt like salvation. Yet, it also felt like danger. For who among mortals could bear total truth? The myth grew stronger as the nights grew longer and stars flickered with cold light. Storytellers in taverns spoke of heroes who sought the flame, though none returned. Poets sang of it as a symbol of hope, a light against deception's shadow. Philosophers debated whether such a flame could even exist, or if it was metaphor. But in the hush of dawn, when the city still dreamed, the legend seemed real. Mothers reminded children that lies could never hide, for the flame would find them. Fathers warned sons that deceit carried its own punishment, brighter than fire. And so the tale lived on, passed from lips to ears, from hearts to memory. Some dismissed it as fable, but others believed it waited, patient and eternal. One day, they said, someone worthy would find it and carry its light to the city. Someone unafraid to face themselves, unafraid to stand naked before truth. It would not be a warrior's task, nor the quest of kings. It would be the journey of one who valued wisdom more than glory. And so the whispers swirled, not fading, but growing, as if the flame itself breathed. Athens listened, half in fear, half in longing, for the day of truth to come. High above the marble columns of Athens, Athena stood watch with eyes clear as the morning sky. Her gaze swept across the city, where voices rose in markets and secrets hid in shaded alleys. She listened not with ears alone, but with wisdom that caught the weight behind every word. And what she heard troubled her, for truth was slipping away like sand through fingers. Merchants quarreled, accusing one another of cheating with weights and false promises. Friends whispered behind closed doors, spreading rumors that grew sharper than bronze blades. Families doubted neighbors, and trust, once sacred, began to crumble like stone under storms. Athena, goddess of wisdom, loved her city with the devotion of a mother to her child. She had given them olive trees, a gift of peace and prosperity. Yet peace felt fragile now. Her temples stood tall, her statues gleamed, but faith without truth was an empty shell. She walked among the people unseen, her steps quiet as dawn on marble steps. She heard a poet twist words to please a crowd rather than honor honesty. She saw a magistrate conceal doubts, fearing the judgment of men more than the gods. Even in laughter, Athena heard the hollow echo of deception hiding beneath smiles. And in the silence of the night, she felt the weight of a city uncertain of itself. The goddess knew that without truth, wisdom could not take root. Knowledge built on lies was like a tower on shifting sand, doomed to fall. Athena did not seek to punish, for punishment fed only fear, not clarity. She sought instead to guide, to light the path as stars light the traveler's road. In her heart, the memory of an ancient flame stirred, the flame of truth. It was older than temples, older than marble, older even than the stories of men. A light that revealed what eyes could not see, what lips dared not speak aloud. Few remembered it now, but Athena knew it still waited, patient and eternal. It was not fire to destroy, but fire to cleanse, fire to guide. Athena thought of her people, weary of doubt, hungry for clarity. She knew the flame could help them see beyond the webs of rumor. Yet she also knew the flame demanded courage, for truth can cut as well as heal. If the people were to find it, they must be ready to face themselves. And so Athena wondered, who among mortals could bear such a burden? Who could seek truth not for pride, nor for power, but for wisdom itself? As dawn touched the Parthenon with golden light, Athena made her choice. She would not bring the flame herself, for truth cannot be handed down by gods. It must be sought, discovered, and carried by those who walk upon the earth. Somewhere in Athens, she believed, there would rise a seeker willing to try. And when that seeker began the journey, Athena would watch, silent yet near. For the flame of truth was not a tale to be told forever. It was a light waiting to return, and its time was drawing near. Far beyond the olive groves and the hum of the city lay the Temple of Shadows. It was not marked on maps, nor spoken of openly, for its name carried mystery. The temple was carved into the side of a mountain, hidden by clouds and silence. Travelers said its walls were etched with symbols no scholar could fully understand. Birds rarely flew near, and the winds that curled around its cliffs carried strange echoes. The people believed this was where the flame of truth had been placed long ago. Some said the gods built it as a safeguard, a place where truth would never vanish. Others believed it had been formed by the earth itself, as if truth demanded a home. The path to the temple was narrow, a ribbon of stone clinging to sheer cliffs. Few who tried to climb it returned, and those who did spoke only in whispers. They told of a doorway that shifted like mist, appearing only to those prepared. They told of shadows that asked questions, questions no one else could hear. The temple was not a place of worship, but a place of trial. It was said to measure the hearts of all who entered, without mercy, without disguise. Those who carried lies within them found the air heavy, as if truth itself resisted them. Those who embraced honesty felt both fear and lightness, as though standing at dawn. Inside, the chambers were endless, a maze of stone and echo. Some halls glowed faintly, lit by no flame but a soft, unseen presence. Others were dark, where every step tested courage more than strength. Legend said the flame of truth burned at the heart of the temple. It was a fire not bound by wood or oil, but by the honesty of those who sought it. The brighter one spoke truth, the stronger the flame grew. But if one gave in to lies, the flame dimmed, sometimes vanishing into silence. For centuries, no mortal had claimed to have seen the flame and returned to tell it. Yet the temple remained, waiting, patient as stone, alive in its quiet way. Some philosophers argued the temple was only a story to inspire virtue, but others swore it existed, hidden in the folds of mountain mist. They believed the gods left it as a reminder. Truth is sacred and not easily won. Athena herself often turned her gaze to that mountain, as if guarding the secret. She knew the temple was no punishment, but a path toward clarity. It called not to the strongest, but to the bravest of spirit. For the temple had no need of warriors, only seekers of honesty. Its shadows were not enemies, but mirrors, showing each visitor their own heart. And the flame itself was not treasure, but guidance, a light for the worthy. The temple of shadows stood waiting, unmoved by time, untouched by decay. In its silence, the promise of truth burned brighter than any torch. And soon, a seeker would rise, drawn by whispers, ready to walk its hidden halls. In the bustling heart of Athens lived a young philosopher named Callis, known for his curious mind. He was not wealthy, nor powerful, yet his words carried weight among those who listened. From childhood, he asked questions others feared to ask, seeking meaning beyond simple answers. He studied in the shade of olive trees, where elders debated and poets sang. Unlike many, Callis did not seek fame, for he knew glory fades like dust on marble. He sought instead the light of understanding, the quiet strength that truth alone can give. The whispers of the flame of truth reached him, as they had reached many others. But where some dismissed them as fable, Callis felt a stirring in his heart. He wondered if such a flame truly existed, and if it did, what it might reveal. Could it expose the falsehoods that clouded the city, or even the lies within himself? One evening, beneath the stars, he spoke aloud as though Athena herself listened. "Great goddess," he said, "if truth is hidden, then let me walk the path to find it." In that moment, a calm silence fell, as if the night had paused to hear him. The choice was made, not with pride, but with humility and resolve. Callis knew the journey would be perilous, yet danger did not dissuade him, for he carried no sword, only a heart eager to see what was real. Friends warned him to forget the legend, reminding him that no one returned. But he replied gently, "If no one returns, perhaps it is because no one dared enough." He was not blind to fear, yet he believed fear was the first veil truth demanded he lift. He prepared not with weapons, but with reflection, writing his thoughts upon small scrolls. Each night he asked himself, "What lies have I spoken? What truths have I ignored?" He knew that before facing the temple, he must face the chambers of his own soul. Athena, watching unseen, felt a quiet pride stir within her immortal heart. For here was a mortal who sought wisdom not for gain, but for its sacred light. Callis did not announce his quest with trumpets, nor seek followers for his journey. He left at dawn with only a satchel, a cloak, and the weight of his promise. The city did not mark his departure, for truth-seekers often walk in silence. Yet as he stepped beyond the city walls, the air seemed to shift around him. The hills stretched before him like a scroll waiting to be written. The road was long, the mountains distant, but his resolve shone brighter than weariness. And so the young philosopher began his journey, carrying no weapon but honesty. A path lay before him, ancient and hidden, waiting for his steps. The flame of truth had whispered, and Callis had answered. The story of his seeking had begun, a story watched by both mortals and gods. The journey of Callis began with the rising sun painting the sky in amber and rose. He stepped onto the dusty road, his sandals light, his spirit carrying both fear and hope. The city of Athens faded behind him, its towers shrinking as the hills rose before him. Olive groves whispered in the morning breeze, their silver leaves catching the glow of dawn. Callis walked steadily, each step a promise to himself, each mile a measure of resolve. He carried little, but within his heart, he bore questions too heavy for any satchel. Why do we fear truth? He wondered. Why do we cling to shadows when light awaits? The road wound through valleys where shepherds guided their flocks and songs drifted in the air. Travelers crossed his path, each with a story, each with a fragment of wisdom to share. One old man told him, "Truth is like water. It flows freely, but it can drown if not respected." A woman carrying baskets said, "Truth is a seed. It grows only when planted in open soil." A child laughed and added, "Truth is simple. It hides only when we make it complicated." Callis listened to all, for he believed even the smallest voice could carry a spark. At night, he rested by streams, the stars above like lanterns of the gods. He thought of Athena, watching from Olympus, her wisdom guiding him unseen. He whispered to the night, "May I be strong enough not to conquer, but to understand." Days passed, and the mountains drew nearer, their peaks cloaked in shifting mists. The road grew steeper, winding through rocks that seemed older than memory itself. Silence deepened, broken only by the cry of distant eagles and the rustle of wind. In that silence, Callis found himself reflecting more deeply than ever before. He recalled lies he had spoken, small and harmless, yet heavy in his heart. He wondered if the flame would reveal them, and if he was ready to see. He realized truth was not just about others, but about facing one's own reflection. The path taught him patience, for every step forward demanded humility. At times he stumbled, yet he rose again, for the journey was not about speed. He saw carved stones along the trail, ancient symbols worn by weather and time. They spoke of seekers before him, names forgotten, their footsteps still echoing in stone. Callis paused to honor them, whispering, "May I walk where you could not." The higher he climbed, the thinner the air grew, and the heavier his thoughts felt. But with each breath, he let go of fear and embraced the clarity of silence. He began to see the journey not as a burden, but as a cleansing. Every mile was a lesson, every encounter a mirror, every silence a teacher. And as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Callis saw the first glimmer of his goal. Far ahead, beyond a ridge, the outline of the Temple of Shadows appeared in the mist. The journey was far from over, but his heart quickened, for the path was true. Callis pressed onward, guided not by maps, but by the quiet flame within. The Temple of Shadows rose from the mountainside like a dream carved in stone and silence. Its columns stood tall, weathered by time, their surfaces etched with fading symbols. The air around it was cooler, touched by mist, carrying the scent of moss and stone. Callis approached slowly, his breath steady, his heart balanced between awe and caution. This was no ruin, though ancient. It held a presence, as though it breathed with its own will. The entrance was wide, framed by carved owls, their stone eyes watching with eternal stillness. He paused before crossing the threshold, whispering a quiet prayer to Athena. Inside, shadows swayed though no flame burned, and silence pressed like a weight on his chest. The floor was polished marble, yet worn with the footprints of seekers long forgotten. Each step echoed, the sound carried into the dark, as if the temple itself listened. Callis felt the air hum, a low vibration that stirred both fear and wonder within him. He walked deeper, the hall unfolding into chambers lined with mural. The paintings told stories, heroes kneeling, queens confessing, kings stripped of false crowns. Each figure in the murals was not celebrated for power, but for truth revealed. He realized this temple was not a shrine of judgment, but of unveiling. In one chamber, a basin of water reflected not his face, but shifting images. He saw himself as a boy, speaking lies to avoid punishment, the guilt still sharp. He saw himself flattering a teacher to win favor, though his words were hollow. The water rippled and revealed him standing among peers, silent when honesty was needed. Each vision pierced him gently, not with anger, but with undeniable clarity. Callis knelt, overwhelmed, whispering, "I did these things, but I wish to learn." The basin stilled, and the images faded, leaving only his reflection, plain and true. He rose, stronger in humility, his steps lighter as he moved deeper inside. Another chamber opened wide, filled with statues of figures he did not know. Each statue had eyes of stone that seemed alive, following him with quiet weight. He touched one, and a voice echoed, "Truth is not always kind, but it frees." Another whispered, "To speak truth to others, you must first speak it to yourself." The voices came not from anger, but from wisdom preserved within the stone. Callis bowed, whispering gratitude, his heart steady with newfound resolve. At last, he reached the inner sanctum, a vast hall open to the mountain sky. In its center burned a flame, not fire as he knew it, but light without smoke. It glowed white, pure, flickering gently as though alive with thought. The flame of truth shimmered, casting no shadows, revealing everything as it was. Callis stood before it, trembling, for he felt it would see into his soul. He whispered, "I do not come as a hero, but as a seeker of wisdom." The flame brightened, pulsing softly, as though it heard and answered without words. Callis bowed low, ready for whatever truth it would unveil next. And in that silence, he felt Athena's presence, her wisdom guiding him unseen. The journey was no longer about finding truth. It was about becoming part of it. Callis stood before the flame of truth, his shadow gone, his form clear beneath its glow. The silence was deep, yet alive, as if the temple listened with patient, ancient ears. The flame flickered gently, not in warning, but in invitation, asking him to step closer. He obeyed, his steps slow, each one carrying the weight of his choices and doubts. When he stood within reach, the flame stretched upward, its light brushing against his skin. It was not heat that touched him, but clarity, a piercing light that softened nothing. Images unfolded in the fire, as though the flame carried mirrors from within time. He saw himself speaking half-truths to protect a friend, the silence heavy with dishonesty. He saw a moment when pride had led him to boast, leaving another unseen in shadow. He watched his father's disappointment when he chose the easy path instead of the honest one. Each memory came not to wound, but to awaken. Each one a lesson laid bare. Callis trembled, his eyes wet, but he did not turn away from what was shown. He whispered, "I see now. I feared truth. Yet truth only asks to be seen." The flame pulsed, and the vision shifted, revealing not past, but possible futures. He saw himself returning to Athens, carrying honesty like a torch for others to follow. He saw a city where truth was spoken openly, though not always easily, and trust grew. But he also saw a future where lies spread like smoke, choking the light from hearts. The two paths burned side by side, waiting for the choice that only he could make. Callis fell to his knees, whispering, "I cannot control the world, but I can choose myself." The flame steadied, and for a moment, it seemed to nod in quiet agreement. A warmth spread through his chest, not fire, but a calm strength, a knowing peace. He rose, feeling lighter, as though the weight of unspoken fears had been lifted away. The chamber grew brighter, shadows fading until even the farthest corner was revealed. And within the brightness, Callis thought he heard a voice, soft and clear as water. "Athena watches," it said. "Truth is not a weapon, but a light to guide the lost." He bowed deeply, his heart filled with reverence, not for power, but for wisdom itself. The flame flickered once more, then settled, as if content with the honesty he had shown. Callis stepped back, the path before him now clearer than it had ever been. He knew the journey was not finished. The flame was a gift, but also a burden. To carry truth meant to live it, to honor it, even when silence or lies seemed easier. As he turned to leave the chamber, he glanced once more at the eternal light. It burned steadily, unchanging, waiting for all who dared to face themselves within it. Callis whispered, "I will not betray what you have shown me," and walked into the dark. The temple doors opened as though moved by unseen hands, the mountain air rushing in. The path outside glowed beneath the moon, a road now meant for truth's messenger. Callis stepped forward, carrying no fire in his hands, but a flame alive within his soul. Callis descended the mountain, the moon guiding his steps as silence stretched across the land. The air was cool, filled with the scent of pine and the distant sound of flowing streams. His heart still carried the weight of the flame, though no fire burned in his hands. Each step felt lighter, yet also heavier, for truth was both a gift and a burden. He thought of Athens, its crowded streets, its voices tangled with stories and hidden fears. Would the people be ready to face the light, or would they turn away into shadow? He could not know. Yet he resolved to carry the flame within him, unshaken and clear. As dawn began to touch the horizon, he came upon a small village at the foothills. The people there greeted him warmly, offering bread and water to the weary traveler. But soon their kindness turned to whispers, for they saw something unspoken in his eyes. One man asked, "Stranger, what do you carry? Your hands are empty, yet you shine." Callis paused, then answered, "I carry no flame you can see, only the truth I have found." The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, for truth was a word both revered and feared. A woman spoke softly. "Truth can heal, but it can also wound. Which do you bring?" Callis bowed his head and replied, "I bring neither harm nor comfort, only what is." Some turned away, but a child stepped closer, eyes wide with curiosity and wonder. "Can truth be like a game?" the child asked. "Can it show us what is hidden?" Callis knelt and smiled. "Yes, Truth is like light. It reveals what we forget to see. The child laughed, clapping hands, while the adults shifted uneasily at such simplicity. That night, the villagers invited him to stay, though many avoided his gaze. At the fire, stories were told, and Callis listened, his heart open, his silence steady. When his turn came, he spoke not of himself, but of the flame of truth. He told them of the temple, of the visions, of the choice between shadow and light. The listeners grew restless, some fearful, others intrigued, as though the words struck hidden chords. One elder muttered, "Better to live in peace with shadows than awaken to pain." Another replied, "Better to live in light than drown in lies that bind the soul." The fire crackled between them, and the village seemed divided, caught between fear and hope. Callis said gently, "The flame does not command. It only reveals what already is." The people fell silent, each turning inward, facing truths they had long avoided. That night, Callis lay beneath the stars, wondering if he had done right to speak. But as he closed his eyes, he felt Athena's presence, calm and reassuring, within his heart. Her voice seemed to whisper, "Truth is a seed. It grows in time, not in haste." Callis breathed deeply, letting go of doubt, and surrendered to the quiet night. When dawn came again, the villagers were changed, not in speech, but in the weight of their eyes. Some smiled, some turned away, but all had heard, and none could forget the flame. Callis rose to continue his journey, carrying the silent fire into a world still learning to see. Callis continued his path, the road winding like a ribbon across the valleys and hills. The world seemed brighter, though the flame he carried was invisible to mortal eyes. He felt its weight within, not heavy, but constant, like a heartbeat that could not be ignored. Along the way, he met merchants, their carts filled with goods, their words polished with charm. One asked him, "Traveler, do you seek wealth or knowledge or simply a place to rest?" Callis answered calmly, "I seek only to walk with truth, though the path is never easy." The merchant laughed. "Truth does not fill a purse. Lies buy comfort, and comfort buys loyalty." Callis smiled faintly, but lies cannot warm the heart for long. They wither when the night is deep. The merchant shook his head and turned away, but his eyes lingered, unsettled by the reply. Later, Callis came upon a marketplace, loud with shouts, songs, and coins striking wood and stone. He saw sellers exaggerating, buyers pretending ignorance, bargains made in shadows of deception. Standing amidst the noise, he felt the weight of the flame urging him to speak. He raised his voice, not loud but steady, and the market grew strangely quiet around him. "Truth," he said, "is not an enemy of gain, but the soil in which trust can grow." Some laughed, mocking him, calling him a dreamer with empty hands and lofty words. Yet others paused, listening, their faces troubled, as if his words cut through layers of dust. One woman stepped forward and asked, "And what of kindness? Can truth wound where lies soothe?" Callis bowed his head and replied, "Truth can sting, but only because it heals what is broken." The crowd murmured, divided again, some fearful, others thoughtful, caught between denial and awakening. Callis did not linger. He left them to their questions, for answers could not be forced. That night, as he camped by a quiet stream, doubts returned like shadows in the dark. Had he done right to speak in places where ears were closed and hearts guarded? But then he remembered Athena's whisper, "A seed does not bloom in one day." He breathed deeply, letting patience take root, and allowed the stream's song to calm him. The next morning, he encountered a band of travelers who welcomed him to share their fire. They spoke of journeys, of hopes, of secrets half buried, and Callis listened with quiet care. When they asked of him, he told only what mattered. The truth was worth carrying forward. One traveler, young and restless, scoffed, "Truth is a cage. Freedom is saying what you wish." Callis answered gently, "Freedom without truth is not freedom at all. It is only another chain." The group fell silent, each reflecting on the quiet weight of his words. When dawn came, the travelers departed with thoughtful eyes, leaving Callis to walk on alone. And though his path was solitary, he no longer felt lonely, for truth walked beside him. Every step was guided not by destination, but by the promise he carried within. The flame of truth had shown him that light spreads not by force, but by presence. And so he journeyed onward, ready for the city that awaited, and the trials yet to come. At last, Callis reached the great city, its walls tall, its gates carved with symbols of power. The streets were wide, alive with people, their voices weaving a constant song of ambition. He felt the flame stir within, brighter now, as though it knew its moment was near. The city was filled with temples, courts, and markets, where words held more weight than swords. Here, truth was traded, twisted, hidden, and displayed like wares upon a merchant's table. Callis walked among the crowds, unseen, yet carrying the quiet fire that no one could steal. He heard debates in the squares, filled with cleverness, but lacking the root of honesty. He saw rulers in marble halls, cloaked in wisdom, but guarded by fear of losing favor. And he understood. This was the place where the flame must be revealed. One evening, a gathering was called in the Grand Forum, a space open to every citizen. Here voices clashed like waves, each claiming to be the bearer of justice and truth. Callis stepped forward, unnoticed at first, until silence fell as if carried by the wind. He spoke not with grandeur, but with stillness, each word like a drop upon dry earth. "The flame of truth," he said, "is not mine, nor yours, but ours to guard together." Some scoffed, calling him mad, others curious, leaning closer as his voice held steady. He lifted his hand, and though the fire was unseen, its warmth filled the air around him. The crowd felt it, not as a blaze, but as a presence, gentle, steady, undeniable. "Truth is not a weapon," Callis continued, "nor a prize to be hoarded, but a light to be shared." The forum quieted, as though the stones themselves leaned forward to catch his words. A child's voice broke the silence. "If truth is light, why do so many fear it?" Callis smiled softly. "Because light shows what shadows hide. But in that light, we find freedom." The people looked to one another, their doubts wrestling with a growing sense of clarity. And in that moment, the city seemed to breathe differently, as if something unseen had shifted. The rulers watched, unease flickering in their eyes, but they could not deny what they felt. For the flame was not in his hands, but in every heart it touched. Callis did not claim victory, nor did he stay to be praised or scorned. When dawn arrived, he walked away from the city, the road stretching wide before him. He knew the flame of truth was no longer his burden alone. It now lived in many. The path ahead was endless, but he welcomed it, for truth had no final resting place. It was a journey, a song, a light that would pass from voice to voice, hand to hand. And as the sun rose, Callis felt no weight, only the steady warmth of the fire within. Athena's whisper lingered, gentle and proud. "The flame lives, and through you, the world remembers." With that, he walked onward, a traveler no longer alone, but part of something eternal. The road stretched onward, but for Callis, each step felt lighter than the one before. The burden of the flame was no longer his alone, for it now lived in every soul it touched. Athena's voice echoed gently, not from above, but from within, like a memory that breathed. You have carried truth with honor, and now it carries you, she whispered like wind in leaves. Callis smiled faintly, knowing the goddess had never left, only guided in silence and light. The land around him shifted, fields turning golden, rivers gleaming as though reflecting unseen fire. Everywhere he went, he saw traces of change, subtle but undeniable, like morning dew on grass. A merchant spoke fairly, refusing deceit, and though profit was less, peace filled his heart. A farmer admitted a mistake to his neighbor, and in truth, they found laughter, not anger. Even a child, once afraid, now spoke boldly, trusting honesty more than comforting falsehoods. The world was awakening, not all at once, but in ripples carried by unseen hands. Callis walked quietly, blending into villages and cities, never seeking recognition or crown. He was simply a traveler, yet those who met him felt warmth, though no fire was seen. They would say later. His words were simple, but they lingered like sunlight after dawn. At night, by his fire, he often thought of the road behind and the one ahead. He knew truth would always be tested, bent, hidden, yet it would never be destroyed. For the flame was not bound to stone or temple, but to the hearts that chose it. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the steady rhythm of the eternal fire. Extalme dreams. He saw Athena watching, her gaze calm, her wisdom vast, her pride unspoken. She did not guide his steps now, for he no longer needed her hand to walk. The flame was part of him, as natural as breath, as enduring as the stars above. One morning, he reached a high hill, where the horizon stretched endless, bathed in new light. He stood still, the wind around him carrying scents of earth, sea, and blooming flowers. The world was vast, imperfect, full of shadows, but also full of endless possibilities for light. He whispered softly, "Truth is not an end, but a journey that begins again each day." And with those words, he descended the hill, not as a hero, but as a companion to all. For the story of Callis and the flame of truth was never meant to end with him. It was a seed, planted in silence, growing where voices dared to speak with honesty. It was a song, carried by countless singers, changing yet never fading, always finding new ears. It was a light, gentle yet unyielding, that could never be extinguished by darkness. As Callis vanished into the distance, the tale remained, alive in whispers, in hearts, in time. And so the flame of truth burned on, eternal, unbroken, guiding those who dared to carry it.